I was saying that technology is transforming life in a very profound way. Maybe you guys don't see it that clearly because you were born almost in the new paradigm, talking about the way we reproduce information today. And we're going to talk a little bit about this new paradigm and how it switches from what was happening only 20 or 30 years ago. And I insist in the only. I mean, we're not talking about centuries. We're not talking about, we're talking in a lifetime. I still fool around with my mother, She doesn't know how to put a rec, on a to record something, in any kind of machine. But I know my kids right now are already, we didn't have to wait 50 years. Right now, my kids make fool of me, because there's so many things I don't understand how to use. The other day, I was also with some friends, and we were making fun that today menu in the restaurant, are very tiny, the letters, so we wanted to make the letters grow. So we would get the menu and do like this, Let's try to, so it opens, and it becomes bigger. And laughing about all this, how things are changed in I repeat, in a very profound way. So in our next slide, please. Gain and Beer talk about different understandings of concepts. So they start saying that there are three different kinds of concepts. The universal concepts, that are those that we can find in the encyclopedias, a definition where everybody agrees and it tries to be very objective, that's the way it is. Most of the time, at least in my experience, when I go to the dictionary and try to find out what the concept means, you find something very difficult, because obviously it has to match with a very open definition of what you understand by the concept. So you have these kinds of concepts. You have the kind of concepts as, and I like this term that Gain and Beer talk about, the marketable concepts. Those concepts that are used in the market space, in a capitalist sense, where you use the concept to sell to make it seem attractive, it's not to understand, it's to make the thing named something attractive, and we have a lot of these concepts going on our new media reality. Just think about, the word like Apple, or Google, all this history. Does anybody know about the history of Google, the name? No? Oh, you're not curious enough. Google has to do with the last name of a famous mathematician about 200 years ago that made this exercise, mathematical exercise, and he made a theorem of Google, and these guys were trying to fool around with the name, so the name Google appeared, and Google sounds very marketable, to actually we already use the name as a verb, yeah. As a let's Google, let's do something, and we can find again a lot of concepts that are all around us, with this marketable circumstance. And the third kind of concept is what the authors call the pedagogical concepts. The concepts where I can try to understand what is going on, with that word, with that concept. So we have these three different kind of concepts, and it is very important that while we read and try to understand these six concepts we're going to talk about, I always think that sometimes we will be talking about an encyclopedic concept, sometimes we will be talking about a marketable concept, and sometimes we'll be talking about a pedagogical concept.
Let me just say something real quick.
Yes.
And I'd like us to be thinking about the concepts that are not included in the books and the concepts that you personally would like to work with. I'm obsessed with the concept of progress. And that's kind of a concept that's always hanging over us. It's an umbrella that's over us all the time. And a few years ago, the idea of progress, as we may know, it was something that you participated in. It was like a train, and you got on the train, and if you weren't on the train, you were passed by. Now the concept of progress seems to be much more in the hands of the individual, where the individual is more of a filter of information that he or she is in control of. Like, you want this, you want that, you bring it to you and you filter it. So progress now is if you want it or not, but it's not going to pass you by. It's there. You can choose it if you want it or not. That's not at all practical in terms of a concept. Like Enrique mentioned, there are concepts like Google that are very practical and that we use all the time. So remember, there's a couple of layers. There's the meta layer, and then there's the practical layer of concepts.
Even the email, you know?
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
The concept of email, no? I'll email you, you know?
Or no, I'll. We don't even.
Understandable, totally understand. That's a pedagogical concept.
That's right.
It's just
Yep.
very iconic, you know?
Good.
And then it's totally understood. Okay, you have your concept, progress. I have mine.
Hit it.
Fluidity? Did you say fluidity?
Fluidity?
Fluidness?
Fluidity?
No, I can't pronounce that.
Fluidity.
Fluidity. To fluid. To be fluid.
To be fluid.
That's the concept that I'm stuck with.
Convergence, transferable. Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. So I'm going to ask each one of you about your concept, okay? So go and think about it. Okay, let's see the 6 key concepts of the new media according to Gain and Beer, please. We're going to, by seeing sometimes the best way of defining something, let's talk about network, let's talk about information, let's talk about interface, let's talk about archive. How do you say it?
Archive.
Archive, thank you. Let's talk about interactivity. And finally, let's talk about simulation. Okay? One important... okay, I'm seeing that some of you are already reaching me on the Twitter. Thank you very much. That's being fast. You don't have to wait.
I feel old.
Yeah, I mean, they are already connected to my tweet.
I wasn't invited to the party.
No, you're old. You're a non-tweet guy. Feel shame.
Yeah, I do. Left out.
So, and before we explain each one of these concepts, let's talk a little bit about those authors that have developed the idea that we are living in a new age. Derrida, one of the most important philosophers of our times, talks about this concept, the archive fever. We are living in an age where there's a necessity on, can you say archiving?
Storage,
storing everything. Storing knowledge, storing information, storing lives, storing stories, you know, storing absolutely everything. Derrida is an author I don't recommend too much for you fellows. Because
yeah, don't read that guy.
No, I can read it. I mean,
yeah.
Only him and his mother can read him. I mean, he is very complicated, and we always have to listen somebody explaining what Derrida meant by something. So
not very efficient.
No, just I mean, if you want to seem fancy, just name him. But don't read him. It's very complicated.